our two candidates. And remember as well, you've got reopen nominations if these two candidates are not the people who you want and you want to restart, but I'm sure that you'll be impressed by these two candidates that I've got with me today. Now, the first one is Charlotte Peters. And the second one is Joel Stevens-Leach. So, just as before, 2 minutes for Charlotte to tell us why we should vote for her.
Sorry, there's not much room. Right. Hi, I'm Charlotte Peters and I'm running to be your sports officer. Sport no longer needs saving, it needs progressing. I'm confident my experience as a club and team captain has prepared me well for the role. Organisational and communicational skills combined with a hard-working nature would assist me to progress sport within the SU until full potential is reached. I would ensure that all clubs, however big or small, have equal levels of help and support, aiding with gaining external sponsorship other than Wine Street bars, organising fundraisers and assisting with any organisational issues. Limited facility space is an obvious issue that is posed to many clubs. If elected, I intend to face this issue head-on by trying to build new and increase the strength of current links with local schools and colleges. By doing this, it is hoped that more training spaces will become available to a multitude of clubs. Leading from this, improving such links shall hopefully allow those who are interested to develop their coaching skills. The price of training is a large issue surrounding Sports Swansea, and one that many clubs and committees are currently unhappy with. I intend to lobby with the university to increase the subsidisation of facility fees and make costs less for the individuals who can play in sport often even. The current work of the education officer has ensured that Wednesday lectures shall no longer continue past 1 p.m. This is a brilliant start, but it's not satisfactory for those who play away matches. I intend to continue with this work by placing pressure on the university, making them realise that sport should not be confined to late afternoons. It can be a daunting prospect joining a club where most members already appear to be experienced and where winning is the emphasis. Because of this, I would like to introduce intramural leagues between the 6 university colleges to make sport appealing to the wider student body. These leagues will still be competitive, but less pressure than BUCS fixtures, requiring students who are already busy to give up less of their time, but still be able to compete in university sport. Finally, many clubs have to rely on external officials that can be costly or unreliable. I will lobby against the university with the current employability drive to help with financing students through officials and umpiring courses. This will be a benefit to both individuals and who hold the qualification, as well as their respective clubs, by not only increasing knowledge and independence, but also opening doors for work. A vote for Peters is a vote for progress sport in Swansea, so vote Peters to be your sports officer. Thanks.
Okay, that was Charlotte. And now for Joel.
All right, I'm Joel Stevens-Leach, JSL, #boyband. Throughout my time at university, I've been involved in sports and I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. But one thing that has annoyed me, if I've got a lecture at 6 o'clock, if I've got a training at 6 o'clock and my lecture doesn't finish till 6, how am I supposed to get there on time? So one of the main things I want to do is continue the work that Zahi's done with the Wednesdays and look at moving training times on these key training days. Earlier finishes should result in more training slots available. And we all know training equals results, practice makes perfect. #make time for sport. The next point I'd like to raise, throughout my time at uni, I've organised several charity events, including for Discovery, where we provided training sessions for disadvantaged children. We managed to raise £1,000 in one day for the Wales Air Ambulance. And we've also given some old footballs to the local primary schools. And what I'd hope to do is not only have certain sports doing that, I'd like to get every sport involved in that. #give something back. One thing I would like to see throughout the whole university is more support for sport from the other students. Not everyone's involved in playing sport, but there's this one day a year that everyone loves sport, and that's Varsity, and I don't see why that couldn't be the same every Wednesday. We need to get more people involved in watching the sports and supporting. #proud. Another point moves on to facilities, especially with the new campus being built. We need to make sure there's adequate facilities at this campus so it's accessible for all. With regards to this campus and stuff, we need to reassess the allocation of facilities amongst the sports clubs. And this doesn't just include training facilities, that's match facilities. And for certain clubs, such as the ones who use things like the beach and lakes and stuff, we need to look at more transport for them. #facilities for all. My final point then is funding opportunities. There's currently a lot of funding available if you look for it. There's things such as Sport Wales, Sports Aid and development grants available to sports clubs at universities. And I want to help people get in touch with those grants and reduce reliance on payment from their members. One thing, during my time as club captain, we've taken the club from being in a lot of debt to being in quite a stable space. And I'd like to get Sports Swansea... Yeah, this is the last point, sorry. I'd like to get Sports Swansea sponsored. Hashtag show me the money. Apologies for all the hashtags. One more, hashtag pink t-shirts, vote JSL for sport. Cheers, guys.
Okay, so you've now heard from both candidates, and we're just going to move some things around on stage so it's a little bit more comfortable. Pop that there. Okay, we move into the debate now. And I'm going to put my first question to start this debate to Charlotte. And the question is this, Charlotte. How are you going to make sure that everyone feels in each of the clubs fully represented?
I think one of the main things is to give all of them support. So if they want to do a fundraiser, then they should get just as much support, whether they're a club that has 20 members compared to a club that has 100. So they need just as much publicity as I say, a larger club, because they deserve that. There's as much an integral part of the SU and Sports Swansea as anyone else is. So by increasing their publicity, making sure that actually societies are aware when sports matches are going on, it's not just divided between Sports Swansea and the SU, because at the end of the day, we're combined. So they need to be together with greater coverage in the waterfront and just generally full support for all sports.
Okay, so it's all about full support for all sports. What about you, Joel? How are you going to make sure it's about everybody?
I agree with what Charlotte said. One thing I would like to pick up on, though, a lot of the larger sports have already got things in place. Obviously, people know what's going on with the bigger sports. So maybe it means that we have to put a little bit more focus on those smaller clubs. Not necessarily give them more focus from the union, but as sports officer, I think we need to help them that little bit more, help them to grow. The big clubs are the size they are, and that hopefully they're not going to get smaller. So we'll help the small clubs to grow, and hopefully one day we'll have everyone as big as they can be. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you're both going to get people involved, and you're both going to make sure you represent them equally. How are you going to make sure that those guys and people who get involved in sport on campus also get involved in the SU?
I think it's important that Sports Swansea and the SU actually integrate more so than they have this year. Obviously, this year's been a bit of a transition, so there's not been it's been a stepping stone in getting them together. Although it was put forward that Sports Swansea and the SU would have their awards together, I think maybe that's too much of a formative event to do it in straight off. Maybe there should just be a night that's actually, it's not specifically like a Wednesday for Sports Swansea. It should be that there's maybe a one-off night in Oceania, or maybe like a tutors where societies and sports all get advance entry, like their tickets if they buy a ticket in advance, so they can all integrate together. And then, as I say, advertise events between the two sort of associations. So advertise if there's an SU event within sport, and advertise a sport event within the SU.
So what do you think about the joint advertising idea?
Yep, I think it's definitely something to look at. If you look at a couple of events this year, such as the rugby game at St Helens that was going to have the tickets for tutors and stuff like that, there's a lot more that can be done there. Not only does that bring sport into the SU, it brings the SU into sport. If we can get students who don't play sport down to watch these games, and then they're obviously going to go and enjoy their night, and at the same time we're getting those sports players going from their games to the SU and enjoying it with everyone. And hopefully, again, it brings it back to the point about making everyone proud and making the university as a whole support their sporting body.
Okay, Joel, you just mentioned Varsity and being involved in things like that. How would you, as a sports officer, get it to be more than just the big one game and to be about all of the sports of Varsity?
There's only so much you can do with regards to Varsity, because obviously stuff to do with where do you play the fixtures. The main one, obviously, we've got the rugby, tends to be at the Millennium Stadium or an equivalent stadium. I'd look to possibly get other fixtures in bigger stadium, and obviously I think it's all to do with how much you promote them. We sell a rugby ticket for Varsity, but we don't promote the other sports as well. All we get is a list of where these sports are, and I genuinely think if you promote them a lot more, if there's posters saying this is where you can go, even if on the day you had people directing people where to go so they can see these sports, because I can guarantee that a lot of students would like to go and see these sports if they were aware where they were and what times they were.
Charlotte, do you agree with that? Do you think that's practical as a way forward to get people to go to some of the other games and book other venues for them as well?
Yeah, I do think that generally the publicity of Varsity needs to not necessarily be less focused on rugby, but actually include everything else as well. The only issue with having the other venues is then if people have to travel between them, or whether it's a long walk, then they may miss other events. I think one thing that needs to be looked at is the time in which supporter buses leave, because many of the sports, say badminton, I know that they're generally one of the first sports to be played, maybe at 9:30, 10 o'clock, by which point most supporter buses haven't even left. So there needs to be an option, whether it's like organising, I know that a lot of people go down individually on trains, but whether it's organising extra buses for those early people that want to go early, or whether it's just merely like advertising it a bit more or playing a couple sports at the same time. I know obviously that will draw away from maybe some of the outside sports, but they need just as much recognition. I don't think you can ticket individual events because obviously that then limits the amount of people, but I think just generally it just needs to be publicised more, just like Joel said.
Plenty of people go to watch Varsity, and a lot of people obviously play during the day. But those people who don't play, how are you going to get them more physically active, involved in sport, and feel that they're a part of things? What about you, Joel? I'll go first.
With regards to Varsity as the day itself, there's not too much you could do with getting them active. But what you could do is look to run other tournaments, other miniature leagues. Both of our manifestos contain points about increasing participation. Some sports, it's not possible to set up a league that plays every week in, week out, you get a fixture. But there's no reason why you can't have bi-monthly, monthly, even if it's only 2 times a year, you have a tournament for that sport and you get other students involved, whether they play that sport or not, whether they play a different sport, whether they play absolutely no sport. There should be set days and a lot more done to get people involved, even if it's just for that one day a year.
Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, like Joel said, we've both got things about participation. My main one would be about the intramural leagues. So having leagues between the university colleges rather than just having a social league within like the sport. So that then people that don't play sport regularly, they still can and they can still be competitive, but it's not as pressured as bucks. That way you can get people from like the engineering, College of Engineering, the sciences, everyone can have the option to play. And then with the second campus coming in as well, then you can potentially do it between halls. So you could have like say Penn Main versus like Oxwich, Village, Woodside, everything like that. And give us like an appropriate amount of teams per, like obviously compared to the size of the halls or the college. By doing that, you get the wider student body involved, but you're also not sort of like separating them from university sport. It's still class university sport, it's still a competition, and you could potentially similarly do one-off day tournaments that are purely for people within SU that don't do sport, so they don't feel intimidated to go along. And by doing the intramural as well, you take off the pressure off the clubs that are maybe training at a high level that struggle to accommodate those that aren't quite as experienced.
Okay, you can respond if you want.
Yep. Just to kind of add to what we've both said, there's things such as the rugby sevens that goes on in the summer, and last year they tried to get football and netball involved in that, and then for whatever reason it didn't happen. And I don't see why there's a reason that on say a weekend towards the end of exams or before exams get started kind of thing, we can't have almost a fun sports day. It doesn't have to be serious sport. You could have an egg and spoon race if you wanted. You could have a sack race just to get people up and out and get them active, involved in sports.
Okay, Charlotte, what do you think about a fun sports day?
I think if it gets people involved, then why not? Like, people would remember it. It's like the dodgeball competition that they do at the summer. Everyone loves it. Everyone rocks up in fancy dress. No one really cares if they lose, win, whatever. It's just fun. So I don't see any reason why there couldn't be one a semester, one every, like Joel said, bi-monthly or anything like that.
Okay. What about those people who are really serious about their sport and the teams who want to improve their position on the league in Bucks? What would you do to help them?
One of the main things I'd look to do is we do need more like structured coaching going on in sports. For example, the year I got elected as club captain of football, we didn't actually have a first team coach. that year we brought in a coach, we got promoted into the Prem. Obviously we were unlucky to get relegated this year, but there's other sports who could benefit from having a coach. There's things that are there. There's links to be made with the community, like stuff. Obviously, Swansea City have taken over Fairwood and stuff like that. Maybe there's a way that we can get some of their community coaches to help out with a couple of sessions with us. Maybe there's a link to be made between the rugby union sides, the rugby league sides, and teams such as the Ospreys. Maybe there's the local netball club that could get involved in ours. Just basically creating those links and hopefully improving the coaching and improving the structure of those training sessions would hopefully improve the quality of the training and therefore league position for all those teams.
Okay, so linking up with community groups and sort of working with coaches, do you think that will work? Do you think we'll get up the league further with that?
I do think that would work, providing that the time frame and it goes in conjunction with the university and whatever the other association is, because obviously there's limited facilities and all of that kind of stuff. So I think with the university's employability drive, by encouraging the university to invest within our own students, by investing in their coaching abilities and their officials' abilities, I think it will benefit all of the clubs, providing that they put someone forward for it. So they can get someone coached up to teach at a level that is appropriate for their club. And then by all means, obviously, get external coaches in. Like I know we as netball have an external coach, but at the moment we probably don't have anyone suitable within our actual club to do so. So if actually we train someone, that could be an option, which eliminates the reliance on external bodies, yet still hopefully progresses up the table. And that then obviously, again, like the amount of time that's spent on training. If there's not enough time training, just like Joel said, if you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail. So it's just about getting teams the time they need to actually put forward their best team and their best squad.
Okay, Charlotte, if you were elected, how would you enhance the reputation of Sport Swansea and the university in general?
Oh, that's a good question. I think generally by actually advertising what we have, because we have some amazing teams. We have the Welsh national pool, and we have like the performance squad, and we have like teams that are in the Prem leagues of whatever their certain sport is. I don't think a lot of people realise how good some of Swansea sport is and how good some of Swansea sport could be if the time was invested in them. So again, like with the Swansea City links and the Osprey links and all of those, I think actually if people realised they were there, maybe they would realise that actually Swansea sport is a force to be reckoned with. And given the time to progress, then why shouldn't it be? Okay,
we're a force to be reckoned with. What about you, Joel? What are you going to do to enhance the reputation of sport at Swansea?
In addition to what Charlotte said, I think we need to make, as a sporting body, I think we need to make more use of the resources within the SU. Like, we've got media teams and stuff like that. We need to be promoting the sport, whether that's just internally or whether that's externally. It needs to be promoted more. Again, you could probably link it back to stuff like the charity work. I know that's not going to improve how good we are at sport, but it improves the image of the university. And hopefully, the better the image of the university, the better sports people come to this university, and we can continue to grow and keep shooting up the books table.
Okay. Initiations are often tempting, and people like to involve people in them. What would you do to make sure that any first social of the year doesn't turn into an initiation?
Well, I think that probably the freshers that join the teams, whether they're first, second or third, maybe need to be introduced to the club steadily. I know that obviously a lot of the clubs drink heavily and are bordering on alcoholics, but maybe if they were just like gradually introduced to the club, like introduce the sponsor, just have a bit of a chilled out one, and just actually reiterate to clubs that you can have fun, but it doesn't have to be bullying. You can do it, like, don't do anything to anyone you wouldn't do yourself. So there's no need to, well, I don't know. I don't really know the hideous things that's happened, but just generally be nice.
What do you think, Joel? What would you do?
Well, I've personally never seen an initiation. But no, what I would look to do, I think a bit of common sense needs to be with like the kind of the club captains or the presidents and the social secs. Remember, just generally a chat at the start of the year. Remember that these people joining your sports club are freshers, kind of thing. They've just come to university. They're away from their parents. So the main thing to get across to them and to the rest of your club who who are at these welcome parties or whatever you want to call them, the main thing to get across is that nobody should be forced to do anything they don't want to do. And you've got to make that clear from the start, because there's no point telling someone after they've gone home crying. There's no point saying, oh, well, we didn't say you had to do it. If you make it clear from the start that if they don't want to do it, if they're not comfortable with something, then that's fine. I just think it's just a bit of common sense, really.
Yeah, of course.
Just to like follow on from Joel, I think also if actually all the seniors within that club or association realise that actually, as much as maybe years ago you may have been made to do it, you don't have to make someone else do it. Like, they might not be quite as hardy as you, or they might not be quite as confident. So just go easy on them.
Okay, so go easy on the new ones that come in. The next question I was going to ask, we've talked a little bit about involving everybody and inclusivity. What would you do to make sure that your club and the clubs of the Sports Swansea are inclusive and are there for everybody?
There's a couple of things to touch on. I think one of the main ones is disability sports. I think all sport has to be accessible to everyone, and obviously there are certain limits to this. Like, we may not have all the facilities to provide we won't have the facilities to provide these sports for everyone. But what we can do is, again, work with the local clubs, because I'm in no doubt that there are several clubs around Swansea that have this specialist equipment, they have the specialist know-how. So all we need to do is get them involved with our sporting side, and that'll make it a lot easier for everyone else. So again, it's just working in the community. I also know that in the coming weeks there's this Out in Sport campaign, and I think that's basically to get the idea across that there's no room for homophobia or anything like that in sport. And I think the best way to kind of get this message across is to get clubs themselves to promote it. There's no point me standing here and saying no sports clubs are homophobic, blah, blah, blah. The clubs themselves need to be getting that message out. So we just kind of, with respect to that, there's zero tolerance on homophobia and discrimination against disabled people. Just try and make it accessible for everyone, really.
Okay, so making it accessible to everyone. What about you, Charlotte? What would you do?
I think at the beginning of the year, when everyone's given captain's training, I think not necessarily more, but I think an emphasis needs to be put on the fact that actually you may, like, obviously you're aiming to win, but you do also want to get members. The university as a whole wants everyone to have be well-being and healthy and involve themselves in sport. So by giving extra training so that club captains can then pass on to their current members and be like, just to promote themselves as a friendly, inviting club, would help with that, inclusive, including everyone else. But also I think Give It a Go week maybe hasn't been quite as successful as quite a lot of people would hope. So I think people need to realise that actually they don't have to join a club at the beginning of the year. They don't have to join the club when refreshers start. It can actually be at any point. So maybe look into introducing more social teams towards clubs, providing that they have the means to do it, so the training space and the time, so that more people can play whatever level they're at.
How would you both reach out to those people who are less confident coming forward in getting involved in sports, who may not think they're talented enough to be in a team, but would like to get involved in becoming active?
I think, again, it's to do with promoting the sport. It's to do with getting the sports clubs to actively show that they want people to come and get involved. I think a lot of clubs that have the competitive teams in books at the moment do need to have a look at maybe providing one session a week, whether that's at a weekend, or obviously you don't want to take away from a training session. So maybe put on an additional session where everyone's invited to come along. Maybe even have it that they don't have to be an active member of that club. They can come and give it a try. Obviously, Give It a Go week is halfway through the year. By then, people have probably thought, oh, I'm not going to bother trying that sport. So maybe it's more of a case that once we've had the sign-ups at Freshers' Fair, we have the trials and stuff like that, and then straight away after that, you have a couple of Give It a Go sessions and let people see if they want to get involved. And obviously, it's all about just being friendly to them, to be honest.
Okay, so giving them tasters and being friendly. What do you reckon, Charlotte?
I would agree with the tasters. I think possibly one thing you could do, just for those those potential members that are very, very unconfident and just don't really like approaching people, is maybe give them a session where it is purely for them. So you don't necessarily have a whole bunch of seniors there other than those that are helping out to run the session. So you give them a chance to play the sport with people that are probably similar ability, so that they can get a taste and realise actually if they do like it and if they do want to carry it on, or actually maybe they just want to join the social side and just be involved with a club. And then by doing that, you can hopefully increase participation, but give opportunities to those that aren't as confident but would like to play.
If somebody didn't want to join a club but was interested in getting a bit fitter, what would you do to try and encourage that and healthy living agenda on campus?
First of all, I'd point them towards a gym. There's a lot of... I mean, the gym is in the sporting place itself, not just go to the gym and get on the weights kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of classes at the gym that are available to everyone, and they range from like spin classes to... Obviously, the spin class is quite hard, but it ranges from that to like the easier classes. There's something for everyone. We've got such a great sporting facility over there that genuinely, if people are intimidated by competitive sport and structured sport, then there's always these classes that they can go along to. And the worst comes to the worst, they finish their hour and they try something else the next week. There's plenty there. And maybe it is that we need to look at doing more sessions. Maybe we need to look at having different levels of these sessions, whether we have an intermediate, a beginner, intermediate, a higher level kind of thing. So yeah, just make sure there's enough for everyone to have a go, really.
Okay.
Yeah, again, pretty similar. But I think for people that don't do sport, I think they don't actually realise the amount of facilities that we do have. Like, I don't think a lot of people know about the indoor track unless they've used it. And I think that space can be utilised to put on, say, circuit sessions or taster sessions of whatever other fitness they may want to do, maybe like weight sessions, so that people can actually try it out. And like Joel says, have different levels of it. So have a beginner one, have an intermediate, and just generally make people realise what is available to them, because there are a lot of classes going on. Anything from Zumba to, like Joel said, spin or anything like that. So,
Okay, and the final question. We live in a time of really limited resources. How would you make sure that all of the clubs and the various different sporting activities are fairly funded?
As I said in my little speech at the start, when I took over as club captain of football, we were in a lot of debt, and there's a lot of things you can do as clubs and as a whole sporting body at Swansea. You can hold fundraisers. You can go from having a laugh one day, just doing a bit of fundraising outside Fulton House. You can hold your own little miniature tournaments and stuff. And obviously, if elected, those are the kind of things I'd be willing to help you out with. As I also said, I'd be looking to get a bit of sponsorship from elsewhere. There's a lot of companies that are willing to sponsor big sporting bodies, such as university sports clubs, but they're only they're looking for a big package. If we go to them as individual teams, they're not that interested. But if we go to them as a sporting body and show that we're united and we're all working together, that kind of stuff, then there's a chance for sponsorship there. There's plenty of avenues to go down. I've looked into a couple of things, but it's the kind of thing that you could, as long as you look for it, you'll find that kind of stuff. And the more money we can raise through sponsorship or whatever, that subsidises the cost of sport.
Okay, so Joel will be looking for money from sponsors. What about you, Charlotte?
I think a lot of clubs seem to think that they're limited to just getting bars on Wine Street. That's really not the case. There's so many different, even local businesses to massive companies that are willing to sponsor teams, that are willing to give them the advertisement. So if it's like a sponsor that will sponsor kit, they can donate some form of kit item as long as you're wearing it week in, week out, and you can prove to them. So I think with proper support from the beginning, so that clubs aren't actually just left to their own devices, maybe before the summer, get the new committee members to actually come in, have just like a little handbook maybe, or just like a little 20-minute meeting. So go through the processes of getting a sponsor and how you do it. If you're doing it as an individual club, and then similar to Joel with the bigger sponsors, and like with fundraisers, you can raise so much money in so little time with minimal effort. So we as a club on Saturday, we went bagpacking and we were there for 2.5 hours, and we raised £300 for the club. Now that all that took was to write a letter. But initially, the prospect of organising a fundraiser, I think, can be quite like, oh no, there's too much to do, I've got too much work, I've got to organise the club. So I think if people realise actually what there was to do and how we could help them out, if whichever one of us were elected, we would help them out, then I think it would make it a whole lot easier.
Okay, yeah, you can.
Just literally 2 seconds. Along the same lines as Charlotte said, it's not just the bars on Wine Street you need to look at. There's restaurants that are willing to sponsor you. Some of them just want you to go in there maybe once a month and have a committee meeting and stuff like that. Maybe have a Christmas meal. You can make money off these restaurants. They're willing to sponsor you as long as you say, oh yeah, we're coming there for one meal. If you're going there for one meal, you're not paying very much to them, and they're giving you a lot more. So that's one way to make easy money. there's other things as well, like printing companies. Speak to them; they'll give you deals on a lot of things. The main thing is to just think outside the box a little bit when you're looking for sponsorship. Don't just think there's whatever 20 bars on Wine Street, it's got to be one of them. Have a little think and have a little look around Swansea, because there's loads of local businesses that are willing to sponsor sports clubs.
Okay, yeah, just to add a final point.
Just a final thing, like I think clubs also, they can combine on their sponsors. They don't have to be, so-and-so club's got that sponsor, so-and-so club's got that one. If you went united as like a little group, maybe, just completely off random, maybe like lacrosse and hockey went together. Obviously, they're quite big clubs. So if they went and approached whatever restaurant or whatever bar or shop, then actually they're more likely to get something than if they just went as individuals. But they can still help each other out and go as a group just to like try and get the best out of it, what they can.
Okay, that concludes all the questions. And now you've just got an opportunity to say that one thing that means that people should vote for you. So, Joel, do you want to go first? What is that one thing that's going to inspire people to get out there, click their mouse and put one next to Joel Stephen Leach?
I wouldn't say there's just one thing. Obviously, we talked at the start about loads of ideas and stuff, but really what I want you to do now is come and speak to me. I'm around campus, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I've got a form spring. Feel free to ask me questions. You can see me and my team are wearing these really nice pink T-shirts. So please do just come up to speak to us, see what we're about, and if you do like it, then please vote for us. Also, there might be a surprise on the internet later on today, and please do head into campus tomorrow, as we're hoping to bring a little bit more fun to the mall tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So what's that special one thing that you're going to do, Charlotte? What would you say to get people to vote for you?
I think, again, similarly, there's not just one thing. And I don't want to bore you by like spieling off a manifesto again. I think you just got to look at the social media. You've just got to go on with that. But I think the main thing is that obviously whoever you vote for, that it is really important to vote for sport, just because to make people actually realise how much sport means to people and how important it is within the SU. Because if it's not voted for, then the university won't take us seriously. So the main thing is just please vote.
Okay. I just wanted to say before we conclude this, I think the guys have been brilliant. They covered a lot of subjects and well done. So just to introduce your candidates again to you, you had Charlotte Peters and you had Joel Stevens-Leach. Okay, you can vote for these two guys online tomorrow between 8 and 8 and on Wednesday and Thursday. The results will be coming out closer to midnight on Thursday. Good luck, guys.